So, welcome to this free discussion. It's all about, sorry, I just got booted out of gallery view. It's all about hydrogen-rich water. I'm going to start. So, we did a little promo for this earlier in the week, and a bunch of new people signed up who may not have watched the previous videos, may not have watched the Alex Ternava video. So, just to say, Um, what do we already have available, Megan? We have the Alex Ternava video, which is excellent, really gives a great summary of what's known about hydrogen-rich water. And he's actually the inventor of the tablets that I'll say promoting because from the research I've done, I feel like that's the best option. I can address that as a question later on. But did we do it? We did a second session
Your
in
experience.
December. Oh, is this the first session follow-up we've done today?
I think so. We did your experience,
Yeah.
and then this is a follow-up.
Okay. So on my free video page, there's the full-length webinar with Alex Ternava, and then there's a short video just of my personal experience, and I'm going to update that for you today. So without further ado, I'm going to share, whoops, that's not what I want to share. Word and Outlook so similar. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give a quick recap for those who are a bit less familiar, what hydrogen water is, why it's so critical to our health, and why supplementing may be a good idea. I'm gonna update my personal experience. I'm gonna share the results of the little survey that we sent out about, I think it was a week ago. Only like 8 or 9 people responded, so I can't really say that could generalize to all of you, but it gives a bit of a sense. And then I'm going to open it up for open discussion. So here's my recap. What is molecular hydrogen? Atomic hydrogen, meaning one atom, is an H with a 1, right? It has a 1 on the periodic table because it has 1 proton and 1 electron. So its atomic weight is 1. It's the smallest element in existence. Now, in our universe, naturally in the air, hydrogen occurs as a gas, H2, meaning there's 2 hydrogens bonded together with what's called a covalent bond, meaning the electrons, the 1 electron from each hydrogen kind of bonds to the other one, and they form this semi-stable bond. Now, why hydrogen is important is that back in the day, like evolutionarily, hundreds of millions or billions of years ago, our atmosphere had a lot of hydrogen. So all creatures, including mammals and humans, evolved early on in an environment that had a lot of hydrogen. So it only makes sense that we have mechanisms and processes in our bodies that rely on hydrogen. Um, Now, just a note, hydrogen gas, the H2 that I've mentioned, is totally different than hydrogen ions that are part of the molecules in our body. So let's just take, uh, I guess we do have a bit of this in our body. Let's just say methane, CH4. So all of those H's that are attached to the carbon that makes up methane, those H's are actually ions. Now, although the Earth originally contained a lot of hydrogen, it now only contains our atmosphere 0.00005%. So in the air, it's mostly nitrogen, and there's like 79% nitrogen, 20 to 21% oxygen, and then we have a couple we'll call them rare gases, and hydrogen is one of those. So then the question arises, if hydrogen is so integral to health, how do we get it? Because we don't get it from the air we breathe. So hydrogen is in our food. Every molecule of fat, protein, and carbohydrate, that's what we call the macronutrients, that we eat contains H's or hydrogen ions attached all over the place. They're attached to the carbons and they're attached to the oxygens. These hydrogens, actually it's an H plus, so hence it's an ion, is critical for energy production. So there's the electron transport chain actually pushes hydrogen ions or H pluses outside of the mitochondria. It builds up a gradient. And then at the very last step of ATP synthesis, the hydrogens rush back in, turning the ATP synthase nanomotor. It's very, very cool and kind of mind-blowing. And we make 100,000 ATPs per second. That's how fast that little nanomotor turns. And that requires hydrogen to work. So if we have any problem whatsoever in our bodies with hydrogen, it affects energy. That's what got me so interested in this, right? Because myself and most of the community that I serve, we have problems with energy. The second source of hydrogen is from the bacteria living in our bowels, the microbiome. Those bacteria ferment fiber. That's why fiber is so critical in our diet, and it makes hydrogen. Some of you may have had a test, usually with an alternative or complementary practitioner, called the hydrogen breath test. Now, usually that test is done when it's suspected we're making too much hydrogen because of a disorder called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But just to say that just is kind of proving the point that the bacteria are making hydrogen. And by measuring the hydrogen, we can get a measure of how many bacteria are in our bowel. We don't want too many because bowel distension is quite painful. SIBO and irritable bowel syndrome are an example of that. But we also don't want too little because that's one way in which our mitochondria get the hydrogens they need. So the second question of this short recap is what can go wrong? Why is it that we would have to substitute or supplement with something? Why don't we get enough? So it turns out that if we eat too many carbohydrates, so that's starches and sugars, we get a higher than needed amount of heavy hydrogen called deuterium. So heavy hydrogen has not only a proton in the nucleus, but also a neutron. So its molecular weight is 2. It's twice as big as regular hydrogen, which is also called protium, because it's just referring to the one proton. Heavy hydrogen cannot fit through that nanomotor that I just talked about that's going at 100,000 times per second. And it literally bonds to some of the amino acids that make up that nanomotor. And once bonded, the nanomotor can't work. And it also can't repair, it has no way to repair itself. So one of the reasons we may be deficient in hydrogen in our modern environment is because we're eating more carbohydrates and less protein and fat. Fat has the least amount of deuterium of all the food. Second, if we eat a lot of processed food, processed is code for all fiber removed. So when they process food, they take out the fiber to make it more, apparently more appealing and kind of softer and smoother and easier to digest. Unfortunately, it may be yummier for us, but it starves our microbiome and cuts down on that critical source of hydrogen. Okay, so those are, I'm sure there's more reasons, but those are 2 reasons why we're deficient. Um, so what role does hydrogen gas play in our body? I'm just, again, brief summary. So the most important role that hydrogen plays is with the balance between oxidation and reduction, this movement of electrons and protons and the setting up of these electrical gradients. That's really its key role. Redox is the master controller of everything in the body, including energy production and the stress response. So if we are too much on the side of oxidation, we have free radicals, too many of them, our mitochondria see that as a danger signal and they shut down. Now, unlike other antioxidants, hydrogen gas is considered a smart molecule. So what this means is to work, the hydrogen gas kind of gets pulled apart and it donates its electron or its proton to balance redox. If we're too oxidized, it will bring it back to the mean, and if we're too reduced, it will bring it back to the mean. The beauty of hydrogen gas and the reason it's considered so safe is because it's never going to decrease oxidative stress below the optimal balance point. So when I started talking about molecular hydrogen as a therapy, many informed people contacted me and said, you know what, I have had cancer and we need our oxidative stress. It's part of our cancer monitoring and killing system, and I don't want to take antioxidants. So that's one of the questions that's been sent in. We don't know for sure, and I would never tell you to take something that you're uncomfortable with or that may even run the smallest risk of increasing cancer. On the other hand, there's a couple studies already out. Alex Turnova talked about one of them in his webinar that are showing, at least in mice, and humans and mice are not identical, but at least in mice, it looks like molecular hydrogen works in complement with cancer chemotherapy. And the mice given the chemotherapy, I think it was 5-fluorouracil and hydrogen together, actually did better. So just saying hydrogen is different than other antioxidants, and I would just say, if I was in the position of someone who had a history of cancer, I would probably wait and try to learn more. Now, is there any evidence that the level of hydrogen gas in our bodies has an impact on health? And the answer is yes. So there's been research in Japan showing that Japanese centenarians, so people that are over 100 years old, have higher than average levels of hydrogen in their bodies. And there's studies of people with a multitude of chronic diseases, including metabolic syndrome and Parkinson's disease, showing that they have lower than average levels. So there does seem to be some research supporting this theory. You know, what I've said so far is theoretically hydrogen is beneficial, but there is some evidence supporting it. So what do we know from clinical trials? So trials where they had people with a certain problem or who just wanted to develop better health, and they gave them molecular hydrogen, and then they did it in a randomized placebo-controlled manner. So they gave some of the people the hydrogen and some of the people a placebo, and nobody knew which group they were in. And then we evaluate them to see which group comes out ahead. And what has been shown, there's well over 100 studies now. And what's been shown is that hydrogen gas, this H2, so we're not talking we're not talking atomic hydrogen and we're not talking ionic hydrogen, we're talking hydrogen gas. It decreases low-grade inflammation associated with chronic disease, so you can measure markers and see that they go down. It decreases oxidative stress caused by free radicals. It decreases the stress that cells experience when they're exposed to toxic chemicals. This could be quite exciting for people that have chemical sensitivity, for example. And it does, as predicted, increase energy production of the mitochondria. Now, not everybody who's being studied is ill. So some people, there's several studies out there showing that in healthy people and in athletes, hydrogen gas increases exercise performance. It's also been shown to improve brain metabolism and cognitive function. And in one study, in an illness group of diabetics, it decreased fatty liver. So how do we get hydrogen gas? What's the easiest and cheapest way to boost our levels? I've done quite a bit of reading, and when I started talking about hydrogen gas, a lot of people emailed me with this question because when we kind of launched it on October 16th with Alex Turnova's webinar, I gave you guys some links to a store to buy hydrogen tablets, the ones that Alex developed. And those are the tablets that are basically sold worldwide. So even if you buy them from a different company, probably they're the same tablets. So I'm just going to take a little drink here. So hydrogen-rich water is water that contains dissolved hydrogen gas. The two most common ways outside of, hospitals and research settings to get that is to take an elemental magnesium tablet. So it's just Mg. It's not magnesium citrate or glycinate or threonate, or it doesn't have an ion. That would be ionic magnesium with a plus bound to something with a minus charge. It's magnesium elemental. When you put it in the water, it reacts with the water and hydrogen gas is produced, and you can see the bubbles. So it's very easy to know if it's working because you're going to see the bubbles. Now, what's really important to know is that the hydrogen gas, however it gets there, doesn't change the structure or function of water in any way. It's just along for the ride. So it doesn't change the pH or the charge of the water. We can't get hydrogen and oxygen gas from regular water because the H and the O in water, H2O, are bound too tightly. So the only way to get hydrogen gas from water without putting the magnesium tablet into it is to use an electrolysis machine. So many of you have hydrogen water machines. You turn it on, and I think it makes bubbles in the water, right? It's electrolysis. And so it breaks up, it uses electricity to break apart the hydrogen and the oxygen. And then you get oxygen gas and hydrogen gas. The reason I'm not recommending that approach, so a lot of people want that approach because it's cheaper. You just buy the machine one time and you're done, and you don't have to keep putting out money every month. The research suggests, however, that even when the machine is new and it's working perfectly, it produces far, far less hydrogen gas than a tablet. So a tablet produces 7 millimoles per tablet, and the recommended dose per day that's been used in many of the successful clinical trials is 12. So that means that if you take one tablet twice a day, even if it doesn't dissolve absolutely perfectly, you're still going to hit that target of 12 millimoles per day. The hydrogen water machines, you often only make a concentration of like 1 or 2 millimoles per liter. And that's because that's as much hydrogen that that kind of the water can hold. The tablet has a special mechanism that it's like secret patent. And it's why it took Alex and all of his chemist colleagues 5 years to figure out how to do it. The water is actually containing more hydrogen than can be dissolved in it normally. So that's why these tablets are kind of a step forward, and why I believe you're going to have more success with the tablets. Almost everybody who emailed me saying that they had a hydrogen water machine also mentioned that it wasn't really working. They weren't seeing an improvement. And so they were dismissing the whole idea of molecular hydrogen. And I just want to say, it may not be that molecular hydrogen won't work for you, although of course we're all different and that's absolutely possible, but it may be that you're not getting enough if you're using an electrolysis machine. So how I do it is twice a day, usually first thing in the morning before eating, because if you have a lot of food in your intestines, apparently it can you can maybe absorb a little bit less hydrogen. And then a second time, mid-afternoon when my lunch has digested and I'm getting a bit hungry for dinner, but I haven't eaten yet. So you want to put 500 milliliters or 16 ounces of room temperature water in a container. You want to take it on an empty stomach, as I just said, and basically you just drop a tablet in there. It should finish bubbling. So what I notice is it bubbles strongly, and then right towards the end, the tablet actually rises to the surface and kind of disintegrates at the surface. As soon as that disintegration happens, it's done. And you want to drink it within a few minutes. You don't have to, you know, drink it in 5 seconds or anything because that's a little bit of water, but you want to drink it within a few minutes because otherwise the hydrogen will just evaporate from the water. Um, The last comment maybe is that no side effects have been noted. So I know this will raise all of your red flags, like everything has side effects. And I'm going to share a few of them with you because some people have written to me and said side effects that they have experienced. We are the canaries in the coal mine. So just because in research studies of carefully selected healthy individuals, there were no side effects, doesn't mean it's going to be safe for everybody. So I'm going to share my own experience. I'm just going to come back to make sure I'm still on air because I have been having some connectivity problems. Excellent. So what I noticed, I started taking the molecular hydrogen in mid-June. And by the second night, so I took one tablet the first day, one tablet the second day. I didn't increase to 2 tablets a day for, I believe it was about a week. So the second day, I slept better than usual. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I fell back asleep more easily. So one night doesn't show a trend. I just kind of noted that. And then the trend has continued virtually ever since. So that was the first thing I noted for myself, improved sleep. Um, I'm not necessarily sleeping longer, but I'm spending less time awake and frustrated, which is appreciated. And when I wake up, even though I'm not sleeping, I might be sleeping maybe a little tiny bit longer, like 20 minutes on average. But despite what I would consider a suboptimal duration of sleep, since I've been on the hydrogen water, I'm just waking feeling more refreshed. The second thing that happened was that daytime energy. So that took a little bit longer to notice, where I would wake up. And even if now, if I've had a bad sleep, which of course still happens, nothing is perfect, I just still feel okay. I go, huh, I only slept 5 or 6 hours, but I feel okay. How can that be? And I don't crash later in the day. I just go through my day, basically do everything I want to do, and go to bed at my normal time. The third thing I started noticing was improved mood. Now, I'm thankfully not someone who's had mood issues, but one can always appreciate an even better mood and just kind of more sense of enthusiasm and zest. And I've consistently had that since June, pretty well, since a few weeks after I started. And then the fourth thing that happened, and this was about a month or a little bit more than a month after I started, is uh, body pain, which I'm going to kind of, it's hard to attribute what it's to know what to attribute it, but I'm going to call it kind of that mild inflammatory pain of aging, where just everything kind of hurts when you wake up or when you've sat too long. That has noticeably decreased. I recorded a webinar yesterday and someone asked me, how much pain I had, and I was like, actually, I have no pain. So that's been my experience. I'm going to just quickly share some of the survey results. So we asked a bunch of questions like, just for people who are already trying it, how long ago did you start? How long did it take to notice changes? What changes have you noticed, both positive and negative? So most of the people who answered the survey had started within the last 1 to 2 months, so quite recently. Uh, I think like 5 out of 8 people have noticed positive results, and actually 6 out of 8 has noticed positive results and 2 haven't. So again, just to prove the point, nothing works universally in everybody. Of those people who were reporting positive results, they all noticed them within the first 2 weeks, so quite quickly. And some of the positive results noted were more energy was definitely number one. More energy, more energy, more energy, better sleep, more energy, and 1 or 2 people, question mark, maybe less pain, right? They're still trying to evaluate. Some of the negative effects, and some of them had question marks on them, like the person's experiencing it. Sometimes it's hard to know the cause. Is it due to the hydrogen water or something else? But one person had a slight headache right after drinking the hydrogen water. Someone had a stomach ache. Someone felt they had more gas. Now, some of the GI symptoms kind of make sense based on some of the research because Alex Ternava reported that it looks like if you take hydrogen, it might actually help the microbiome recover. And if that happens, things are going to be a little bit shifting in there and you might have more gas, at least temporarily. And one person wondered if they were getting more fatigue. I'm going to answer a couple questions that were sent ahead by people who are unable to attend so that they'll be able to listen to the recording. So these are great questions. Should you avoid taking the tablets on the day that you're going to go do some blood tests? I don't think that taking hydrogen will change any, I'll call them kind of routine or conventional blood tests, like you're getting your blood sugar or your cholesterol or your liver function. What you do on that day, like for example, for many of those tests, you're not supposed to eat before the test because it'll have an acute effect on the test results. I believe that the results of hydrogen on some of those tests, like on your blood sugar level or on your liver function, are going to be cumulative over time. But I would say, just as a precaution, so that you're not wondering, it's so easy to not take a tablet before you go do the test that it just makes sense to do that. Someone's asking if you're going to the dentist and you're going to get local anesthesia, would the hydrogen-rich water affect these things? I don't believe so. If anything, it will help you manage the stress of the procedure. This is a really, really good question. It's one that I've been asked a few times. Does the hydrogen-rich water build up energy in the long run? Meaning, if you take it for a while, can you eventually stop taking it? Or is it temporary and you have to keep taking it? My belief so far is that you have to keep taking it. It's not changing the underlying problem of why a person's mitochondria may not be working. In my Live with Dr. Stein membership, we're going deep into mitochondria and so many different ways in which we can improve mitochondrial function that are getting at the root causes. Hydrogen-rich water is not one of those. So unfortunately, I don't think it will solve the problem. It is a Band-Aid or a temporary fix. Yes. So again, the person's kind of saying, if I stop taking it, so if they take it and now they can do more things and build up a bit of stamina and resilience, what happens if they stop taking it? They're not going to immediately lose the stamina and strength that they built up. Say now their muscles are a bit stronger, but I think they will lose. I think we will lose the energy if we stop taking it. Another question is, why would I use tablets in preference to the bottle? So I think I've explained it's really an issue of dose. You'd have to drink like 6 bottles of water to get the same amount of hydrogen gas as 1 or 2 tablets. And for reasons that I'm going to talk about in an upcoming expert webinar series, you don't want to drink that much water because that's going to fill your body with deuterium. And then this person is from Australia, which is why they're not tuning in live saying, how do you get the tablets? And are there options in Australia? So actually, I believe that the company Drink HRW that Megan is going to give the links to in the chat. If you use, so we're going to give you a Canadian link and a US link, and both of those are also on my webpage. The US link is where people who don't live in Canada should order. It's in US dollars, and I believe they ship all over the world. But of course, if you live in Australia, shipping is very expensive. So I'm not sure at this moment there's a way around that. So I think that is everything that I kind of prepared ahead. I see there's a lot going on in the chat. So about the private public, we will kind of look at that afterwards. Megan has put some links also to the where you can see the Alex Tarnava interview if you haven't already done so, because he really goes into depth and will give you a good background. So I'm going to answer the questions in the chat, then maybe we'll take a short break and then we'll come back for Q&A. So this person says, I have SIBO, and so I still question if this would be appropriate. You know, that question was asked of Alex as well. And I think he also said he doesn't really know, right? Nobody has done that study. So theoretically, people with SIBO have a lot of hydrogen producing bacteria in their bowel. They might also have methane producing bacteria, so not all bacteria in the bowel produce hydrogen, but it's possible if you have SIBO and you have a positive hydrogen breath test that you already have a lot of hydrogen producers. So in that case, you would think it doesn't really make sense to take tablets that increase the level even more. However, it's also true that maybe by, well, I don't know. I'm just going to stop there before I get myself into trouble. So what I would say is, whenever someone asks a very difficult question like this, if the experiment is relatively inexpensive and safe, then I usually say, you know what, why don't you try it out? You may not know until you try it. If you try it and within 2 weeks, so buy one bottle, right? 60 tablets, take one a day or even half a day and build up slowly. So actually that's another point. So several people who have emailed me since October saying they've tried it and they've had some side effects. I've given the same advice to each person, which is start way, way, way slower, right? You might be just someone who's like, hydrogen is safe, meaning it's not going to kill you, but it's not inert. If it was inert, it wouldn't be able to help us. So it's shifting redox, and some of us may be super sensitive to shifts in redox. So I recommend cutting your tablet. I don't know that you want to crush it, but you could definitely cut it in as small as quarters pretty easily and just start with a quarter, maybe every other day, and observe yourself and slowly build up. Several of the people who tried that approach are now able to tolerate it. It took 2 to 3 weeks to kind of build up, or even a month. Now, some people have done that and they've built up and they've been on it for 1 or 2 months and it's still not working. So I would say, you know what? Save your money and spend it on something else, because there's no remedy in the world, no matter how amazing the research is, that there's 100 studies, et cetera, et cetera. There's no remedy that's going to help every person. That's just, we're all so different. And maybe you're someone who has excellent levels of hydrogen already, and it's just not going to help you. Is there a blood test for molecular hydrogen? No, I don't think so. The hydrogen breath test, the one that they use to diagnose SIBO, is notoriously inaccurate. And that's why a lot of conventional labs don't necessarily offer it. It's not because they're mean or uninformed. They've just looked at the kind of the accuracy of the test, and they've discerned that maybe it's not accurate enough to make it widely available. Like our labs in Calgary made that decision about 15 years ago. Now, interestingly enough, my understanding is they've recently brought the test back. So, it's a changing landscape. So a question, can I clarify about magnesium? Is this the same as calm powder? Does the magnesium create hydrogen water? What's the connection? Okay, I kind of skipped over that, so I'm going to go back to it. Uh, so it is, I don't know what calm is, so I can't say for sure, but here's what happens. You have magnesium. Pure magnesium, nothing attached to it. I'm assuming that calm would have something attached to the magnesium, probably glycine, but I don't know that product off the top of my head. So you put the magnesium tablet in the water. It reacts with two hydrogen molecules and it makes, two water molecules, and it creates, so forward arrow, one molecule of hydrogen gas and 2 molecules of magnesium hydroxide. When you use the tablet, it's not clear. The water is not clear. And when you finish drinking it, there's usually a little white, like little tiny white particles, and you got to actually wipe out the glass. That's the magnesium hydroxide. So the magnesium, this is a unique product. No other magnesium supplement will work. I just can't. So you could ask, there's 1,000 magnesium supplements on the market. This is unique and it's not like any of them. Yes, the magnesium reacts with the water to create hydrogen gas. That's what the bubbles are. Just like if you have a carbonator, it makes carbon dioxide bubbles. It's exactly the same. Someone only drinks reverse osmosis. Do you put the tablet in that? Absolutely. I'll just say that for someone who's using reverse osmosis, I hope not the water that you're going to put the magnesium in, but other water during the day. I hope you're remineralizing the water because reverse osmosis takes all the minerals out of water and our body needs minerals. So if you're using reverse osmosis, you need a very reliable daily strategy to get the necessary life-giving minerals back in that water. Does hydrogenated water last in a bottle in the fridge? No, it does not. That's a great question. That's why you have to drink it quickly. Hydrogen is so tiny, right? It's a 1 on the periodic table. It diffuses through plastic, let's say. Now, you can buy special aluminum clad bottles that the magnesium does not escape out of, but you know what? That's a lot of effort. Much easier to just drink it, in my opinion. Um, 1 drink or day, how much to drink in a day? So the amount you're going to drink in a day for many adults, but not everybody, because we're all different. So if you're an average person, and I spent my entire career explaining to people why average is a really bad word because none of us are actually average. But just say, for the sake of argument, you're an average person and you do really well on 2 tablets a day. Every tablet has to be dissolved in 500 mils of water. So if you dissolve is the wrong word, reacted in 500 mils of water. If you have less than 500 mils, it's just not enough. You're not going to get the maximum reaction and the maximum amount of hydrogen gas created. So you're kind of wasting a little bit of what you paid for. And if you put it in more than 500 mils, then it's okay, but you're going to have to drink that extra water, and it's already quite a bit. I can tell you because I do it twice a day. It's like, oh my gosh. Um, I prepare my water with 1 teaspoon of an elemental liquid magnesium. Could that react with the tablet? So you don't want to add anything to the water that you're putting your magnesium tablet in. So I would add, if you're using liquid elemental magnesium, do it a different time of day, but don't add any minerals, drugs, supplements. Just have whatever your drinking water is. Ideally, it's going to be filtered so that it doesn't have a bunch of toxins in it. That's a whole other lecture. But whatever you use for your drinking water, don't add anything. Drop the tablet in. It's quite fun. You get to see it bubble. Should you take medication separately? I actually use that to take my morning medication. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Again, precautionary principle, probably better to take the hydrogen-rich water, wait 15 minutes before you take other substances, including food. Are there other brands that make hydrogen tablets? So there's many, many companies that sell tablets, but they're pretty much all made in the one factory. So you're going to get the same product, I think. The reason I'm recommending the Drink HRW company is because I know for sure that the company that Alex Turnava founded, he's now divested himself because now he's kind of having everybody else make their tablets. Um, but I just know for sure they've got the real thing. If I go with some random company that I haven't heard of, I just don't have that kind of confidence. It might be totally fine, but I'm conservative. I just go with the one that I know. Can you recommend any tablets that are gluten-free? They're all gluten-free uh, that you take. I absolutely know that they're gluten-free. The the full list of ingredients is on the bottle. I am gluten-free. I've had no issues, so I'm very confident. The company might not be confident, but Alex told me and confirmed what's in them, and they are gluten-free. Do you use or recommend any of the other supplements sold by Drink HRW? I haven't tried any of them. I don't take a lot of supplements. Again, I'm learning lots about supplements lately, which is going to be in an upcoming webinar. So my supplements are at a real minimum, and I just buy the pure hydrogen from them, or the magnesium tablets, molecular hydrogen. How many tablets can you take in one day? Is there kind of a maximum, and maybe from a point of safety, or that won't increase results, right? So Alex talks about he exercises intensely, and according to him, he has a really high stress life because he's like flying all over the place, dealing with all these different companies and giving talks. And he says that he typically takes 4 or 5 tablets a day. I tried, and I shared in one of my previous videos, when I went for like really long hike, longer than usual, I thought maybe I should take an extra tablet today. Didn't really make a difference for me. So I would say do the experiment. We call it an N of 1. Do the experiment on yourself. Try adding and see what happens. It's either going to help or it's not going to help. If it helps, great. But now your cost has just gone up because now you might take more tablets. So it's actually, I was kind of relieved when the third one really didn't make a difference because that means I can keep my costs down. Oh my gosh, this is a fantastic question. What happens if a tablet is accidentally swallowed? Well, if you've accidentally swallowed one, you wouldn't need to ask the question because it will burn. So when the magnesium reacts with water, which of course we have in our body, and creates the hydrogen gas and the magnesium hydroxide, it also releases quite a bit of heat. So I've tried it. I've bitten off a tiny piece because, of course, I have to try everything. And yep, it's pretty hot. It's not uncomfortable, but I wouldn't want to swallow a whole tablet. What would the hydrogen water with spring water from sources in? Absolutely. So the purer your water, the better. Absolutely. And if you're using, we'll call it easy water, that's like, again, a whole other topic, exclusion zone water, even better. And they say that natural stream and mountain water has more exclusion zones, so that would be excellent. So Ellie, would one reason why some people do better at sea level, so just saying not everyone does, um, I've often wondered what changed in the 10 days. Would it be increased hydrogen in more oxygenated air? So I've also thought about a slightly different version of this question. Ever throughout my medical practice, those who were lucky enough to be able to afford it would go on, oceanside holidays to Mexico or Hawaii, and they'd often come back saying they felt better. I myself don't have that. It doesn't and so we always in my practice just assumed it was something to do with altitude. I now think, and it may be altitude because some of us may be very sensitive to altitude. And if your mitochondria aren't working well, altitude's going to be a big issue because you need all the oxygen you can get. But I think it's due to sunlight. So I think if you live in northern Canada and you take a holiday to a sunny, warm climate where you spend most of your day outside, you're getting sunlight. And everything I'm learning, again, for those of you who are in my membership, I'm talking about quantum biology and I'm learning lots and lots about sunlight. And our April expert webinar is going to be with Scott Zimmerman, who's an expert. He's an optics engineer and he's an expert in light. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to learn a lot more. My best guess is that it's due to sunlight. It has nothing to do with hydrogen because, as I mentioned, hydrogen is 0.00005% of our atmosphere. It's almost irrelevant. Should I be drinking another type of water than RO since the minerals are removed? RO is excellent because it really successfully takes out toxins. So reverse osmosis is a good choice, or distilled water, but you have to add back minerals. And I don't have that in my head, like exactly the amount of every mineral. So there's companies that sell it, right? I have a mineral formula called Ellie's Electrolytes, which Megan can post because she's recently learned where it is on my server. But it's not complete. Like I wouldn't do that. Like I do it to supplement my non-reverse osmosis. Like my water filter doesn't take the minerals out. So I don't need my mineral supplementation to be super complete. Despite that, I do take a multi-mineral supplement every day for a whole bunch of reasons, one of which is having enough, we'll call them healthy minerals, helps the body detox heavy metals. So again, whole other topic. So I would say reverse osmosis is a good choice because it really gives pure water, but you have to put back the minerals. One of the companies that, a lot of people like Andrew Huberman are promoting is called Element, LMNT. And I've looked at it, looks pretty good to me. I believe they have unflavored. I don't know I don't know what other stuff is in it, but they advertise as being not having a lot of non-medicinal ingredients. Do you have a mineral supplement? So I don't have one that I personally recommend. That's a commercial one that's pretty easy to get, and it seems like it's as good a choice as any. As many of you know, if you have orthostatic intolerance, you're probably already supplementing your water every time you drink with salt. So if you have low blood pressure or high heart rate, salt in addition to a more generalized mineral supplement would be helpful. My home water is spring water filled with minerals. Oh, and using HRW with this water is giving me good results. Oh, to have spring water. That would be amazing. Someone's saying, I'm taking a quarter tab at the moment. How much water should I be dissolving it in? So it would be 1/4 of 500 mils. So 500 mils, half a liter, 16 ounces for those of you who are on Imperial is for one tablet. So if you take half a tablet, you would divide that. So 250 mils is one measuring cup of water. So 500 mils is 2 measuring cups of water. If you're taking a quarter tablet, you could get away with a half a cup of water, half a measuring cup. Or I guess that would be 4 ounces if you're working on ounces. I'm pretty fuzzy on ounces myself. Since the hydrogen tablets are magnesium based, would that cover off the magnesium supplements, or should I continue with both? So the amount of magnesium in the hydrogen-rich water is 80 milligrams, 80. Now, Alex, because I thought, oh, 80 isn't very much, right? Most magnesium supplements are 100 or 200. But Alex pointed out a really good point that those 80 are all magnesium. If you take a regular supplement like magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate, magnesium malate, a huge part of the weight of the tablet is from the anion, the thing that's bound to the magnesium. So 80 actually is a pretty good size. If you're taking 2 a day, it might be enough. It depends what you're taking it for, right? So if you're taking it for sleep, you might still want to take your, before bed magnesium supplement because timing might be important. If you're taking it for muscle cramps, you can judge for yourself, right? Is it helping with the muscle cramps or not? Is tap water okay? Tap water is fine. It just tends to have toxins in it. Some municipalities or areas have better tap water than others. And you'll know because it has a bit of a taste. So when people come into my house, where I've had like whole house water filtration for 25 years, they almost always say, oh, your water tastes so good. And what they mean by that is they don't taste anything, right? Because all the bad stuff has been taken out. So tap water is okay, but some kind of filtration in our polluted environment is probably better. And you don't have to get fancy. You can buy a carbon-based filter like a Brita system for like $30 and then, replace the filter every month. And that does pretty well. It doesn't have to be a really fancy system. Oh, there's now an HRW soak. Yes. So the question is, does having a soak, meaning you put it in your bath, replace taking a tablet? Yes. And Alex in his webinar said he mixes and matches the different forms. Of course, he has all the fancy tools because he's the inventor. So he has like inhalation and he has soaks and he has tablets. I think some people are trying to even make no, I'm going to take that one back. So yes, soaking he thinks is really good. And it also helps you take a break from the tablets because one of the really interesting things I learned from his webinar, he said he thinks that if you take the exact same dose of the exact same form of hydrogen every single day, the body gets a little bit tolerant of it. And sure enough, and I said, oh, Alex, that hasn't happened to me. And he said, just wait, it happens at about the 6 month mark. So sure enough, like 6 months and 1 week, I was like, oh, my butt is dragging. What's going on? And sure enough, I took a week off. I took about 8 or 9 days off totally. And I didn't totally go back to baseline. So I was really happy about that. Um, and I've restarted it and I'm having full effect. So you, from time to time, you may have to take a supplement holiday. Does sea salt or Himalayan salt put minerals back? So you know what? You'd have to look at what's the analysis of the salt. Every salt is different. right? One Himalayan might be different than another one. So I would say probably like I use Himalayan salt generously on my food. I also use electrolytes in my water bottle. Um, I have orthostatic intolerance. So if you don't have orthostatic intolerance, don't do what I do because it's not going to be right for you. Megan posted the LMNT option, so zero sugar, paleo keto friendly hydration. Question, should I not be using RO water that is remineralized? Oh, we're getting to advanced questions. I don't think I can answer that question. I might have to pass that one on to Alex. So the question is, should I not be using reverse osmosis water that has been remineralized as part of that process? So I just don't remember the numbers. He gave the numbers in the webinar of like there's a calculation of a number of how many minerals are in water. And he gave a range, like it should be between, I might have this wrong, like 20 and 200. It's a pretty broad range. So if the remineralization, like you have a machine that automatically does it as part of your RO system, it's probably fine because almost certainly it's going to be within that kind of safe or acceptable recommended range. But if you're adding, large amounts of minerals apart from something like that that's automated, I would not use that water when you take your hydrogen tablets. Uh, so someone's taking 1 gram of magnesium twice a day and is asking, will the tablets replace that amount? No, it wouldn't be quite enough. So probably for muscle pain and migraine, that magnesium's pretty important. I would probably still take it. A naturopath told me that Himalayan salt does not have the iodine we need like sea salt does. Yeah, that could be. I I do not know. I don't like taking sea salt because our sea is so polluted. So that's the reason I go with Himalayan salt. But that may be the case. And so if someone's struggling with thyroid issues, there are ways through naturopathic doctors or functional medicine practitioners to test iodine levels. It's not super precise, but it gives you a ballpark. And if you find out that you're deficient in iodine, then you can take, I think it's, I'm going to say this wrong, Gogel's drops. Someone probably knows better than me. So there's little iodine drops that you can take. But again, you got to know what you're doing because you need guidance. This isn't, iodine is not a DIY supplement. Do you have to soak at room temperature? I do not know the answer to that question. Maybe Megan can be writing down the questions that I say I don't know the answer to. Fabulous. Um, Directions on the website for muscle relief, add 1 tablet per 5 gallons of warm water and soak for 15 to 30 minutes. There you go. Add more tablets as needed. For intense aches and pains or other acute rehab, 1 tablet per gallon of water. Okay, so it sounds like there's a big range there, depending if you're just using it for kind of increased comfort or you actually have an injury. Because Alex there are studies out there that if you soak in it, it may help you heal your injuries faster because it's balancing the amount of inflammation that you're producing. Someone's saying, I use kosher salt because it has iodine, so that might be a good option. Again, I'm just nervous about where the salt comes from. Lugol's, thank you, Suzanne. I know I can count on you. An observation, the HRW tablets dissolve more slowly in colder water. Absolutely true. So in my van in Florida last week, when I woke up and it was -4, did not dissolve very fast. Still dissolves, but you have to be more patient. Um, does it cause burping? I think we're all different. So a few people, right, have talked about GI changes, flatulence, gas, burping would be in that same umbrella. Looks like a lot of tablets are needed for a deep soak. Yeah, I think the tablet option is going to be pretty pricey.